Star Wars: A New Hope is one of my favorite films of all time. It shaped the science fiction genre, became a multi-billion-dollar franchise, and was even nominated for Best Picture. Though many say the reason Star Wars is so memorable are the characters.
I don't know what you're talking about.
They're the reason we keep coming back time and time again, and in the grand pantheon of film characters, everyone knows who Han, Luke, and Leia are. The same can't be said for others.
Yeah?
But it's one thing to say we love these characters, it's another to examine why we love them.
I don't know who you are or where you came from, but from now on, you do as I tell you, okay?
So in this video I want to examine character arcs, specifically how they propel our characters forward, create engaging plots, and ultimately an emotional narrative that makes us universally connect, whether you're a fan in the United States, Europe, Japan, or elsewhere. First, we need to examine what exactly a character arc is. Many beginner screenwriters mistakenly confuse arc with change, thinking that as long as my protagonist changes in some way, boom, I have an arc.
Hey, what are you trying to push on us?
This thinking is problematic, primarily because it misses one of the most important elements of a story, its theme. In her book, Creating Character Arcs, K.M. Weiland muses, quote, "Not only do character arcs directly influence story structure, they're also a direct influence on theme. In some respects, we might even go so far as to say that character arc equals theme." Now this is important because if you're one of the millions of Star Wars fans out there who likes the films because of A, the characters, or B, the story, you are essentially saying the same thing. Because character drives the story, they are inextricably linked. A story, on the other hand, where the plot does the driving, leaves you with mechanical or inorganic characters. A theme is essentially a unifying or dominant idea that shapes your story, and it should be summed up in one easy-to-digest sentence. In Macbeth, for example, the theme is ruthless ambition leads to one's destruction. And why not throw in another Scottish example, Braveheart, where freedom is worth fighting for even if it means to the death.
That they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
Lajos Egri, in his masterwork The Art of Dramatic Writing, calls theme your premise and argues that it should be the first thing you think about before writing, for it shapes and drives every aspect of your story. Without a theme, without trying to argue something you believe to be true, why bother writing in the first place? So how does this tie into Star Wars? Well, themes play a large role in the Star Wars universe. As George Lucas said while writing,
"It's about good and evil, but heroes, what makes a hero? What's friendship? What's the idea of sacrificing yourself for something larger?" They're all really basic things. They say, well, you don't have to make a movie about that. It's very obvious, but it's actually not.
Writing themes through character arcs are definitely not easy, but let's take a method used by Weiland to break it down, using Star Wars: A New Hope as an example. Weiland argues that in order to shape your character's arc, you must first know 4 things: your character's want, need, lie, and ghost. Let's take a look at these more in depth and apply them to the character of Luke Skywalker. So what do we start with first? Let's start with what Weiland calls the, quote, foundation of character arc, the lie. The lie is something that your character believes to be true about the world or himself. It's an outlook on things, but something about this outlook is wrong or misguided. When you know what this is, you can sort out how to make it right. So, what is the lie Luke Skywalker believes? Luke believes that his life isn't going anywhere, that he'll likely end up a simple farmer like his aunt and uncle. There isn't anything special about him, but maybe, just maybe, he'll be able to eke out a life if he can make it to the academy.
And if these new droids do work out, I want to transmit my application to the Academy this year.
A dream put on hold when his uncle asked him to stay on for another season.
Harvest is when I need you the most. Only one season more.
This lie is also heavily influenced by the thing that is lacking in your character's life. Take a look at one of the most iconic scenes from A New Hope. This is a great scene because it conveys so much with so little. There isn't even any dialogue. In fact, even though the scene is 38 seconds, the shooting script reads with only 2 sentences. Luke, dreaming of a world beyond his own, stares into the horizon. At worlds beyond, the music swells, giving us a sense of hope until his head lowers, the music changes. He succumbs to the realization that that isn't his life. It is, in fact, a dream. But why is it that Luke believes this lie? For that we must examine the second characteristic of story arc, the ghost. The ghost is the reason your character believes the lie. Some call it the wound, and it usually refers to a traumatic experience in your character's past that has shaped the way they view the world now. This is a component of backstory, something we don't get a lot of in A New Hope, and when we do, it's largely expository.
How did my father die?
Luke's ghost is the death of his parents, which shape his outlook on life. Because of this event, even though he never personally witnessed their deaths, it leads him to believe his life will be nothing more than a Tatooine farm boy. He'll never get to be a great fighter like his father because, well, his father isn't around, and damned if he isn't able to help his Uncle Owen with another harvest.
Luke's just not a farmer, Owen. He has too much of his father in him.
That's what I'm afraid of.
In Empire Strikes Back, when Luke finds out that Vader is his father, it hits him and us, the viewer, especially hard, because we subconsciously feel that his lie was based off another lie. The lie that his father was dead.
That's impossible!
The reason why that twist is one of the greatest, if not greatest, plot twists in cinematic history is because of its embeddedness in character arc, an idea worthy of a video of its own. So once you know your character's lie and ghost, you can set up ways to change the lie, but in order to do this, your character will need a reason to change. For that, we look at the third characteristic of character arc, the want. Wants are that thing your character desires more than anything else. They are the fuel or motivation that causes your character to act and propel the story forward. For a more detailed explanation of wants, check out my video on the differences between want and need. In Star Wars, Luke has a very easy to identify want. In fact, he states it clearly at the beginning of Act 2.
I want to learn the ways of the Force and become a Jedi like my father.
Luke's desire to become a Jedi like his father is what will eventually drive him closer to the main antagonistic force, Darth Vader. His want additionally creates certain empathetic qualities. He wants to be like his dad, leave this farm boy world behind and explore the great unknown. I could do a whole video on creating empathy in characters, but needless to say, many of the main and secondary characters in the original trilogy are filled with such empathetic qualities, or qualities that make us relate and care about them. Back to wants. It's important to note that they're only as good as the obstacles that get in their way. If there was nothing in the way of Luke becoming a Jedi, there wouldn't be any story. In A New Hope, Luke is met with several obstacles, from needing to find a way off Tatooine,
10,000? We'd almost buy our own ship for that.
getting sucked into the tractor beam of the Death Star,
There's gotta be something you can do.
narrowly being crushed into a trash compactor, and how can we forget Darth Vader himself.
I'm taking an awful risk, Vader. This had better work.
A New Hope is also an interesting case study because it sets up both a trilogy want and an episodic want. Luke's trilogy arc, his want that spans episodes 4, 5, and 6, is to learn the ways of the Force and become a Jedi Master. We see this continue in Empire Strikes Back under the tutelage of Yoda, and Return of the Jedi, where Luke must use everything he has learned from episodes 4 and 5 in a final showdown between his father, Darth Vader. But the individual episodes of Star Wars also need their own closed stories. Luke's want in A New Hope is to save the princess and destroy the Death Star.
I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you.
He accomplishes both these things by the end, but is far from reaching his trilogy goal of becoming a Jedi Master and defeating the Empire. Wants also need to be backed by stakes. In other words, what will happen if our character doesn't get what he wants? For Luke, if he doesn't destroy the Death Star, it could mean the complete annihilation of countless planets, as was evidenced with the destruction of Alderaan. And if he doesn't become a Jedi Master, who will provide a balance to the evil Empire? Having your character want something, backed by stakes with obstacles that get in his or her way, is only the first step to creating memorable characters, and most writers make the mistake of stopping there. In addition to want, your protagonist must have a need. This is something that they need to figure out about themselves if they are going to get the thing that they want. In A New Hope, Luke needs to believe in himself and trust in the Force. If he doesn't do that, he'll never end up becoming a Jedi and defeating the Empire.
Let go your conscious self and act on instinct.
The need, like a want, must also be presented with obstacles, and in most stories the obstacles to a need is the character themselves. It's internal. In Luke's case, it's his own self-doubt. In fact, when presented with the opportunity to leave his simple farm life behind and go on an adventure, he rejects it. And not only that, he rejects it 3 times.
I'm not going to Alderaan. I've got to get home. It's late. I'm in port as it is.
I can't get involved. I've got work to do. It's not that I like the Empire. I hate it, but there's nothing I can do about it right now.
In his book, The Writer's Journey, Christopher Vogler calls this the refusal of the call, stating, "The problem of the hero now becomes how to respond to the call to adventure. Put yourself in the hero's shoes and you can see that it's a difficult passage. You're being asked to say yes to a great unknown, to an adventure that will be exciting but also dangerous and even life-threatening." And Luke goes on to make a sorry list of excuses as to why he can't go on the adventure, even though subconsciously he'd want nothing more, and it is only when the adventure is brought to him that he answers the call. Because this time, it's personal. We also see Luke taking small steps towards achieving his need. This mainly occurs under the mentorship of Obi-Wan and the beginning of his training which is cut short at the end of Act 2, and later picked up by Yoda in The Empire Strikes Back. Luke's need isn't just tested in A New Hope, it will be tested both in Empire, Return of the Jedi,
I am a Jedi, like my father before me,
and even The Last Jedi. Now that we've identified the 4 characteristics of character arc, let's examine how we naturally arc the character so that when they've changed into their new, better self, it doesn't feel awkward, stilted, or mechanical. In character arcs, and especially in stories such as A New Hope, it's important to know the difference between a reactive and proactive character. At the beginning of A New Hope, Luke is reacting to the world around him, blinded by his lie, which prevents him from taking action and makes him refuse the call.
I can't get involved. I've got work to do.
As the plot progresses, he will eventually be confronted by events which will force him to confront his lie and eventually accept the truth. If we look at the first act of Star Wars, it's essentially a series of events or plot points in which things happen to Luke and he reacts to them. Luke acquires the droids, reacts. Luke searches for R2 after he goes missing, reacts. Luke is saved by Obi-Wan, reacts. And finally, Luke reacts to the death of his brutally murdered aunt and uncle by joining Obi-Wan on his journey to Alderaan. For almost the entire first half of the film, Luke is going under a process of learning via reaction, but more importantly, he is slowly learning that his lie is holding him back, and as the film progresses, it will be tested more and more.
Stretch out with your feelings.
Then comes the midpoint.
Very bad feeling about this.
The midpoint in most films is where your character switches from being reactive to proactive. In A New Hope, this happens at 1 hour and 3 minutes into the film, almost exactly halfway through its 2 hour and 4 minute runtime. This is where the Millennium Falcon is tractor beamed into the Death Star and, after hiding in Han's smuggling compartments, Luke discovers the princess.
The princess? She's here?
And makes his first proactive decision to save her.
It belonged to her. She's the one in the message. We gotta help her.
This is the beginning of the end of his old self. For the rest of the movie, Luke makes proactive decisions, eventually deciding to fight in the Death Star battle even when he's told it's suicide.
Besides, attacking that battle station ain't my idea of courage. It's more like suicide.
So why does Luke's arc work? How come it doesn't feel forced? Get it? Forced? Well, the easy answer is because it's earned. In his journey, his lie is tested. His decisions that bring him closer to the truth, to believe in himself, are rewarded, while his decisions that bring him further from the truth and closer to his lie are punished.
I've got work to do. It's not that I like the Empire. I hate it, but there's nothing I can do about it right now.
The decision to ultimately trust in the Force didn't happen magically. It was a culmination of events that started the moment those 2 droids landed on Tatooine. But do all characters need such in-depth arcs to make them work? According to Weiland, your protagonist, the main character, must have a strong want, need, ghost, and lie to create emotionally satisfying characters and stories. However, your secondary characters don't need to fulfill all of these. Let's briefly compare Luke to Han Solo and Princess Leia using the 4 characteristics. Han has a pretty clear want, to gain money to pay off his debt to Jabba the Hutt.
Tell Jabba that I've got his money.
His need is to understand that friendship and honor is more important than selfishness and greed.
Look, I ain't in this for your revolution, and I'm not in it for you, Princess. I expect to be well paid. I'm in it for the money.
His lie is his belief that you gotta look after yourself if you want to survive in the world.
Your friend is quite a mercenary. I wonder if he really cares about anything. Or anybody.
But Han is missing something, a ghost. Does he need one? No, he's not the main character. But if he were, we'd probably want to know why he believes his lie so vehemently. Although my guess is that his backstory will likely be rectified in the soon-to-be smash hit Solo.
Thought we were in trouble there for a second, but it's fine. We're fine.
And what about Leia? Her want is to stop the Empire, but other than that, we never get to flesh out her need, lie, or ghost in A New Hope. Her arc is not as important as it is in the other films, nor that of Luke or Han in this one. This changes in Empire, but that's a topic for a whole other video. So what have we learned from Luke's journey? We have a character start in his normal world. He wants something, but his lie is holding him back. A lie which is grounded in some sort of traumatic experience or worldview of the past or present. The journey will test his lie, eventually turning him from reactive to proactive, bringing him closer to the thing he needs and the thing he wants. Star Wars is one of a few films to effortlessly pull off character arcs. They're difficult to master. They take time, planning, and probably a lot of coffee. But if you sit down and do the work, you may just get memorable characters and a film that will stand the test of time. Thanks for watching, and if you liked what you saw, please be sure to like and subscribe. More videos on the way, so stay tuned.